When we started the Abbey, I wanted us to be a place of yes, yes. Not necessarily because of this scripture, but just because I wanted us to be a church that was all about yes. Yes, you are welcome. Yes, everyone is welcome. Yes, yes, you can come. Yes, you don't have to be a Christian. Yes, you can just come for coffee. Yes, all of these things. And in part, I wanted to do that because I had learned about there being so many no's in church, right? Like the church teaches about grace, but is notoriously lacking in grace sometimes. People can say one little wrong thing, like about potato salad, and it's done. No. We don't put mustard in potato salad. No, we cannot use that table in this space in the narthex. No. No. And then there have been really hard things like, no, you cannot be in the choir because you're gay. No. I wanted us to be a church of yes, not a church of no. There have been spaces that I have witnessed or have friends who have witnessed where churches just always say no. No, that group can't meet in our church anymore. They leave too many cigarette butts outside. No, that group is too messy. Their kids spill juice. It's a problem. No, we can't use this space in that way. We don't like it. No. There was even one time where we said no. You can't store things in this closet. And then we went to look in the closet, and it was full of overhead projectors and VCRs and slide projectors and equipment that I just didn't even know what it was. No. This can happen easily in a church and in its space because we get kind of protective of our stuff and our space that is ours. And it can happen in church meetings too, right? Where folks say, no, we don't do that. No, we can't do that. No, we've never done that. No, we tried that like 20 years ago and it didn't work. We're not doing it again. There are churches that I have heard about that put like, you must give us 25 cents for the coffee in that tiny styrofoam cup. And people who watch to see who is doing it and not. Folks who cut up the donuts for the fellowship time into fours because this is exceedingly cheap, which is different from stewardship. There's all kinds of no in church. And so I wanted us to be a church about yes. And in that space where we graduated from being a baby church under First United Methodist Church into our own church that was still sort of a toddler and maybe easy to fall down, I came and was here every day now. And I could see that in some ways we were trying to say yes, but very often we were saying no. Like quite literally, like, no, you cannot bring your scooter's coffee cup to walk around and look at the books. No, we won't give you change for the parking meter. No, you cannot take your ceramic cup into the salon. No, all kinds of no's. No, we can't host that event. It means we have to change our schedule by 30 minutes. No, we won't sell your feminist book here. No, you cannot have an extra pump of vanilla unless we charge your credit card 50 cents, which literally cost us more at that point. There were so many no's that I had like a come to Jesus meeting, a staff meeting repeatedly over and over, and I began what I call the inverse Nancy Reagan. Just say yes. Just say yes. We talked about all the ways you could say yes. Yes, let's put a pump of of vanilla in the coffee. Yes, let's give people change. Like, they're not stealing money. We're just giving them change. Yes. Like, there's so many reasons for people to hate church. It doesn't have to be about quarters. Like, just say yes. There was even, like, one point where I wrote down and said out loud 100 times, if you are about to say no, stop and think about how to get to yes. And if you cannot, call me. I don't care where we are. And then people started saying yes, like all the time. Like, while I was praying, we made a cappuccino. And while Sister Kathleen Erickson was giving a very gripping conversation about her time as a chaplain in detention centers in Texas, and the attorney who was with her was sobbing because he lost the case, someone said yes to making a smoothie, and the blender went off for 2 minutes. Like, I mean, maybe not 2 minutes, but it seemed like an eternity. And I tell you, like, blender noise and detention centers, both still a problem. And this was like during Obama's administration. I tried saying yes, and one of our partners wanted to have an event during the day instead of at night, when usually we had most of our events, and they wanted it at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I thought, well, okay, it'll probably be like 10 people, maybe 12, it'll be fine. It was 109 people. It was 109 people, and it was about human trafficking. The district attorney was here, FBI agents were here, all kinds of folks were here telling like the most terrifying news you have ever heard, and you should only come to that intentionally. The people who were here to work or study looked like this, and then we never saw them again. They left. Like, the boundaries of being a church and a coffee shop and a bookstore just don't allow us to say yes to everything all the time. Being a good church was making us like a really scary coffee shop. There have been moments where we've made other mistakes, like saying yes to giving food and coffee to many of our neighbors experiencing homelessness. Like, what kind of pastor would say no? Well, we ended up being like a day center with 15, 20, 25 folks in the space, and that would be okay if we had intended to be a day center and if we had staffed with social workers instead of baristas. And if we had rented the space saying that we were going to be a day center. Some of those moments were a little awkward and scary, and some of them are funny-ish now, like when a salon client walked into the bathroom and found someone totally naked. And some of them will never be funny. It created this really dangerous environment for folks who are working here and being here that I hadn't anticipated or expected or prepared for or imagined in any way possible. I have been like learning about banning and barring people. There was a clergy meeting that I was late to because I was talking to the police about banning and barring this person because it was dangerous. And I walk into the meeting and I was like, sorry, I'm late. I was banning and barring someone from my inclusive church. In this season, our partners like Match and Sienna Francis House, they said, please stop. You are not helping. This is a problem. You are just trying to feel good about being a pastor. And so we paused. We had to reset new boundaries and figure it out. And every situation is different. See, the relationship is the policy. There's just not one absolute policy. Every relationship needs tending. That's what makes boundaries so exhausting and so tiring. We've had to have conversations about folks who are sexual predators. I've even had to be in conversations with the larger church about removing credentials for fellow clergymen. I did not anticipate this at all. It's not something that I feel like I was ever taught or invited to think about. Maybe it's gender, or maybe it's the Midwest where we're all just supposed to be like, yes, and friendly and nice. Maybe it's just that discomfort with saying no. But I soon learned that our boundaries were essential and maintaining them were important, and that, yes, oh no. Oh, it's okay. Oh, it's hard. Falling down is hard. We've had all these spaces where we just have to keep staying in relationship and managing boundaries. This space of intention. We even had one neighbor who, when intoxicated, would come into the space any time of the day and try to hug every woman and one particular man. Like non-consensual hugging, just at random, in the coffee shop. And so I had to visit with them and say, hey, this is not okay. I even had to visit with our landlord. And then he came to apologize to me and snuggled right up before a Christmas Eve service. And I saw him walk in and I was like, oh no, I hope he's sober. And then he was, but still, we didn't understand the concept of consensual hugging. There's just been all these spaces of learning and strangeness and eye-opening spaces that I never imagined going into ministry. So rather than a just say yes policy, what we really needed was this intention about how we are in relationship and clarity about what we need in terms of boundaries. And often those boundaries become clear when they get brushed against, when my gut is like, oh, that was not right. We are not doing that. And the church, I don't think, has ever talked a lot about boundaries. Maybe about certain rules that people think are very important in the world about morals or moralizing in some way, but never about intention and how we are in the world. And I don't think that's an accident, because a group of boundaryless yes folks are a lot easier for people in power to manipulate than a group of people with clear intentions who know their sacred worth and honor the worth of others. And honestly, if we look at Jesus, he is so well boundaried. Brene Brown talks about this space of boundaries as allowing us to be more fully present, right? That the people she researches who have the clearest boundaries also show up with the warmest hearts, because they know who they are, they know what they will and will not accept, or how they will or will not be comfortable in the world and in the space. Boundaries allow us to show up for each other. Jesus names this again and again. He has extraordinary boundaries. He doesn't even respond to mom guilt in the Gospel of Matthew. He eats with his friends when he wants to. He invites people to the table that he wants to invite. And the only reason we probably know about it is because those people upset religious leaders. He weeps when he needs to. He rests when he needs to. He reclines on the chest of the beloved disciple. He receives that intimacy and relationship. He even takes a nap on a boat in a storm. And when folks are seeking healing, he enters into that relationally and with intention about who he is. He will not be used up by others. It is this work of for otherness. Gusto Gonzalez talks about being for others, that God's presence is most expressed in for otherness. But that is not about being used and depleted by others. There are times when Jesus is healing and he is done and he leaves the line. Can you imagine being the person who was waiting next in line? He leaves to pray. He pauses for what he needs. He takes deep breaths and rests. He goes to the communities where he is supported, like Bethany when he needs to recharge. He spends time with the friends that he has made into family. There's a moment when a man has been waiting to be dipped into a pool for 38 years, who calls out to Jesus, and Jesus doesn't respond with, voila. He looks at him and says, do you want to be well? He heals a man in Jericho, and this man wants to come with him, and he says, no, you need to stay. Like he is clear about the intention of who is the disciple. He is clear about this space with the crowds. It is time for him to teach. He teaches, and when it is time for him to rest and step away, he does so. This space in the Gospel of Matthew comes from a time when Jesus is teaching about blessing the Beatitudes, naming, blessed are the poor, blessed are the meek, blessed are the peacemakers, blessed are those who mourn, those who are never blessed by the world around them that Jesus has inverted. And then Jesus names a deeper theology. He goes into this list of sayings, you have heard it said. You have heard it said, thou shalt not murder, but he names a deeper connection and commitment that means be mindful of when you are angry and bitter and resentful. He talks about adultery. You have heard it said, thou shalt not commit adultery, but he invites folks to go deeper. That space of lust where another's body and being becomes an object for use instead of relationship. And here this no means no and yes means yes. It is this reminder of a wholehearted yes and what it means. Maybe you, like I, have said yes because you didn't want people to not like you. Maybe you've said yes because it was just easier. Maybe you have said yes and not really meant it. Maybe it was a commitment that you made in your heart but couldn't actually make with your schedule and your time. And maybe when we do that, that yes doesn't become a cheerful gift, but this kind of sulking resentment. This is not a faithful yes. We usually learn these boundaries when we feel them brush into us in ways that make us uncomfortable. And we will keep learning boundaries individually and collectively. This way that we might say, no, thank you, or no, not that way, or maybe this is how we can work on that. Maybe we experience that with friends and family or spaces of disagreement where we have these words of hurt and we have to say to someone at last, no, you cannot speak to me in that way. I will not engage in this way. I will engage with you if we follow these parameters. It can be hard to set boundaries, especially when we haven't had a safe place to even think about them or talk about them. There have been spaces where we have learned in the Abbey about boundaries. Every job has a job description, a clarity about its work and intention. We have these spaces where volunteers need to have certain skills. Not every job is for every person. I've been intentional about meeting with anyone who wants to join the spiritual, the pastoral care team. Will they be safe to vulnerable queer folks that come in? if they are not, this is not the team. We've had spaces of conversation all along the way that name the ways we offer our gifts and clarity of how we need to do that. And we've had bruises and bumps and worries and wounds to heal from too. May we have the courage to stay in hard conversations together. May it be so. Amen.